Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we look at Vampire Dance Fever. That's right, these are three movies in which vampires are trying to woo or hypnotize people with the power of the dance. I had done this one before I started doing videos, so we're going to do a little backpedaling because I want to make sure that I have videos for all of them because I had lots of really good bad ideas for triple features back in the beginning that have, continued up to now, but man, there's some really bad ones. This one is actually pretty fun. I like all the movies on this triple feature. A lot of people don't like 2/3 of the movies on this triple feature, so, buyer beware. Our menu is going to go in increasing order of importance of the dance sequence to the film, so our menu is going to include Fright Night, Vampire in Brooklyn, and Once Bitten. Fright Night's just great. I mean, if you haven't seen the 80s Tom Holland Fright Night with William Ragsdale, Roddy McCall, and, of course, Chris Sarandon as the wonderful Jerry Dandridge, you're not living, because this is just really, really good vampire movie from the 80s in which William Ragsdale plays a teenager named Charlie who is the only one that believes that his next-door neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, is a vampire, which he is. Jerry Dandridge, Chris Sarandon, smoothest vampire, just so 80s sleazeball. It's just wonderful. And he was content to just kill Charlie and his mother once they found out about him. But then he caught a glimpse of Charlie's girlfriend, Amy, played by the wonderful Amanda Bierce, who you might remember as Marcy Rhodes, later Marcy Darcy, on Married with Children. And she is sort of maybe the reincarnation of Jerry's long-lost love. So, killing Charlie takes a backseat to getting her back. And he does it with the dance. It takes place in what movies have presented to me as a typical 80s dance club, and it really kind of plays as Jerry is psychically roofing Amanda, and she's just getting more and more turned on and unable to resist his wily charms, which looked through a modern lens just adds an extra level of creepiness to the whole thing, because remember, he's a vampire. He is not supposed to be sympathized with or liked, but it's a pretty good dance number. It's pretty damn sexy, and they work in a couple really good gags using the mirrors and everything, and you get to see Charlie's heart just crushed in the middle of it because, Jerry's winning. Because it kind of happens later in the film, and up until the moment it does happen, it's not even mentioned or referenced. It's, just not that big of a deal, but really, really worth it, and I'll be posting all of these on my Tumblr, so you should check them out. But man, Fright Night, cannot recommend Fright Night enough. But then again, everybody seems to like Fright Night. Movie that nobody seems to like, Vampire in Brooklyn. Not gonna lie, I like it. I don't really believe in guilty pleasures. I'm not embarrassed by anything that I like, but man, Vampire in Brooklyn, there is like 80% of this movie is really good in, a campy vampire movie starring Eddie Murphy sort of way. But it's honest to God, just these, a couple random parts where Eddie's just a little too indulgent with his, what would you call it, obsession with playing alternate characters in the middle of the movie, which, I love it because, it's nice because it keeps Rick Baker in business, but really, the gangster part and the preacher part, the movie just grinds to a halt, which is a shame because he had a pretty good loose adaptation of the original Dracula story directed by Wes Craven, starring Eddie Murphy and friends, including Angela Bassett as our main character, Rita. She is, man, the arms on her are incredible. Alan Payne is her partner. They're both cops, and you have Kadeem Hardison as the Renfield character, Simbi Kali as the Lucy Westenra character, and Zakes Mokai as Van Helsing. There's a lot of fun to be had here. And Eddie Murphy, for me, this is one of the last really good Eddie performances. He's, indulging in his need to be the coolest guy in the room in his movies, but it just sort of works because he's playing this vampire with long hair named Max, and he's got, a nondescript Caribbean accent, but, for whatever reason it works for me. I might just be easy. It's, Dracula plus coming to America, because Eddie Murphy is from a foreign land come to New York to find his bride, who is Rita, Angela Bassett. She is somehow half vampire. It's not, it's explained, but not really. And he needs to make her become a full vampire, or else they're all going to die because vampires are dying off or some such. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that Max is very insistent he has to dance with Rita just once, and then everything's going to fall into place. And when he finally does, about 2/3 of the way through the movie, setting up our third act, it works, and she becomes a vampire and everything. And then, morality questions, which were kind of fun, if not a little overwrought. I mean, have you seen the church scene? But the actual dance itself was pretty good. As compared to in Fright Night, where Amy has no agency whatsoever, this is clearly Rita's choice. Like, she's in the moment, but throughout the whole movie they've been foreshadowing that she knows there's something different about her that she can't put a finger on. And when Max comes around to explain it to her, she wants it. And it's actually shot pretty well. I forgot to mention the music. In the Fright Night sequence, the music was sort of just typical 80s dancey pop stuff. It didn't really have anything to do with anything. This one, in Vampire in Brooklyn, it's a cover of No Woman, No Cry, which then merges into the orchestral score by J. Peter Robinson. It's kind of fun because it's also, Wes Craven kind of shoots it as an intentional reference to Carrie, because as the dance gets, as Eddie and Angela get more and more into the dance, which is basically just Eddie hugging her from behind and whispering in her ear, they are rotating, and the camera's rotating around them, so it's very, very disorienting. And the only thing you can really focus on is how gorgeous Angela Bassett is and how big her arms are. It's just amazing. But, the vampire and the dance and the victim. I say victim. In this one, she's not really a victim. She wants to become what she's supposed to be, and is only, later horrified, and then makes, what one would argue is the correct ethical choice and how to deal with it. But, she is much more in control than Amy was in Fright Night, which makes it a really fun contrast for Jim Carrey in Once Bitten. Which, if you haven't heard about, I'm not surprised. It was on heavy rotation when I was younger, before Jim Carrey really hit. This is before we were in Living Color. This is back in 1985, when Hollywood and/or Jim was still trying to make him sort of, a generic leading man type. Like, he's a straight man through most of this movie, which is, talk about hiding your light under a bushel. It just doesn't make any sense in retrospect. He's playing this high school kid, which is always hilarious in the 80s, seeing 30-year-olds playing 20-year-olds, or playing teenagers. But he is a high school kid named Mark, who is getting nowhere with his girlfriend Robin, while seemingly everybody else in the world is having sex. So one night he goes out with his friends, goes to a singles bar, and meets the Countess, played by Lauren Hunton, which is, discount Faye Dunaway. There's just no other way to say it. And Lauren, as it turns out, is a vampire that every year must drink the blood of a male virgin 3 times before Halloween, or else she's going to lose her youthful beauty. Yeah, I know. And so each time she bites him, he becomes more and more vampiric, and high school hijinks ensue, and it's very, very goofy. But, it's not poorly acted, and there's always Cleavon Little as the Countess's major domo, who is just, come on, it's Cleavon Little. He's just great in everything. But before the actual, final confrontation, everything sort of comes to a head at the Halloween dance, where Mark has gone dressed as, just himself, which oddly enough looks like a vampire at this point. And Robin is some sort of Raggedy Ann type thing, I think. And so they're having fun, they're dancing, and then the Countess shows up. And what ensues is a full-on musical dance number, which has actual expressive dance. They're telling a story with the whole dance of Robin and the Countess fighting over Mark in the middle. And what's interesting is the role reversal, because even though you have 2 girls fighting over one guy, the guy has absolutely no control over himself at all. He is completely passive throughout the whole dance number, and the women are running his life, which is, a fun role reversal, because usually it's the male vampire that is controlling the young female victim, but here it's, older woman vampire, young guy, and he has absolutely no say in the matter. Happily, everybody can really dance in it. Lauren Hunton, I think, is kind of the weakest of the third, which is not that weak, but Jim Carrey is an incredible dancer. Always remember him in The Mask. He is really something when he starts moving. And Robin, played by an actress named Karen Coppins, is more than up to the task. you know, it gets all, you know, 80s sexy, and she becomes more, like, she keeps removing parts of her outfit until she looks like an aerobics instructor by the end. But again, these are all going to be on my Tumblr, so it's really, really fun to watch. And so, in this version, the vampire loses because at the end of the dance, he's going off with his girlfriend, but then, you know, they kidnap her, and then he has to go rescue her and everything. So, you know, it turns into a fairly standard vampire movie by the end of it, if not, you know, silly, sophomoric, and just sort of a, you know, PG sex romp, I guess would be the phrase for it. But this dance number is really, really good, as are the dance numbers in all of these. So, you know, vampires, dancing, fun to be had, and I'll see you guys next week.